What's up, y'all? It's your girl Shay Renee, and today we are going to talk about the Kings of Napa, episode 7. Listen here. Who is the extortionist? Tell us. Tell us already. We need to know. All right. Let's get into it, shall we? All right, y'all. So everybody is at the hospital and they are all wondering what the heck is going on with Melanie's health. How can they, what is going on? Is she going to come out of this? And just what's the goings on about this whole situation? Okay. So Vanessa is like, you know what? Let us pray. Let's just pray over this situation. That's the only way we're going to get up out of this here because only Jesus can lay his hand on this family at this point. Okay. So August is saying, is as they're praying, holding Dana's hand like, I hope you're praying for forgiveness because you know this your damn fault. You fucked up. So Dana is like, yeah, whatever. I'm the only one that's really trying to save this family. So Vanessa is like, hold on. Bridget is like a daughter to me, and my sister is in here fighting for her life. And I had to watch my husband die as well. We are not about to play these little games. Let's pray. Let's make this better and let's move forward. Let's do what we can to help this family. So they're just trying to figure out what's going on. August gets a text from Steve Sims as Vanessa is giving her speech saying, in August, we was just locked in a room and you was telling us that we need to have a kumbaya and come together. Now you over here trying to take your daggone cousin, your sister cousin down. Like, I don't understand what's going on. So then some guy named Steve Sims RSVPs, and apparently he's like a top tier wine of connoisseur. Okay, so he's coming to their event to try out the New King's Heritage wine. So they quickly forget about their damn aunt and her health and their cousin that's in jail, their sister cousin, and worrying about this because that's what it's all about with August, the success of this wine, child. So Vanessa is looking at them like, who the hell did I raise? These kids are heartless. So then Aunt Yvette comes in and she's like, I got on the first plane smoking from Vegas. Like, what the hell is going on? Bridget in jail. Melanie is in the hospital. Like, I knew she'd been looking pale lately, but goddamn, I didn't think she was going to be in the hospital. So then the doctor comes over, and apparently he was like a colleague of Reginald because Reginald was a surgeon and he was in the ER as well. So he says it's not looking, it's really touch and go, guys. She's in a coma, unfortunately, and she does have a daughter, right? And they were like, yeah, Bridget. He's like, yeah, you might want to get her up here because basically she might have to make some decisions. And they're like, wait a minute. Christian's like, hold on, be straight with us. What you mean she gonna have to make some decisions? He's like, I don't want to say basically, but just be prepared. So basically, it's not looking good. He said that she has something called African sleeping sickness, and the infection had crossed into her brain, which is what caused the coma. So it's not looking good for Melanie right now. So in the next scene, Bridget speaks with Yvette in jail, and she's upset that they think that she did this. Yvette tells her, listen, it's not looking good for you, baby girl, because they have a lot of evidence that points towards you as being the extortionist. And Bridget says, well, August told them I didn't do it, right? Here's my thing with Bridget. You want August to have this blind loyalty to you, but there's evidence that you did that shit. Like, why the heck? Like, you have to understand the position August is in. If somebody is viewing constant evidence that shows that you did it, you got to understand that evidence shows over how I feel about you. Because at the end of the day, I could think you're a good person all day. There's so many people out here that portray themselves as being good people, but they doing slick shit behind your back all the time. And Bridget, you looking a little slip and slide right now. Okay. So I can understand why August thinks that you did it because all the arrows are pointing at you, sis. Okay. So she says to Aunt Yvette, she says, give me a good lawyer and get August down here so I can talk to her, so I can look her ass in the eye and see exactly how she feeling about me, little old me, because I need to know how to play this thing. Okay? So August is running with Kelvin. He says, maybe talking about it is going to make you feel better. And August is like, I don't know if talking about it is really going to make me feel any better. Hold on, y'all. I thought I had this mic hooked in all this time, and I did not. Okay, there we go. So the sound will probably be, voice sound will be a little less echoey. Okay. So she's like, I don't know if talking about it is really going to be good. And Kelvin is like, listen, Bridget wouldn't do stuff like this. Like at your core, that Bridget is not, she wouldn't do something like that. And August is like, listen, I'm torn because all the evidence is pointing that she did that shit. Like, in my 50 Cent voice, like, she is looking like August really is Bridget really is the culprit for this. And August is just really torn because she loves her sister cousin, but it's like, dang, girl, you really putting me in a hard position. And she's like, I'm the president of this company. Like, I have to do what's best for my family and for our business. And with all signs pointing towards Bridget doing this, and I done brought her back to the vineyard, letting her work here, and she doing all this stuff, like, my hands are tied. I don't know what to do. And, Kelvin is still being devil's advocate, saying, listen, we all grew up together. I don't think Bridget did this. And she's like, you know what? Talking about this didn't make me feel better. So she runs off and leaves him. So I'm like, God dang, she really mad and torn over this. So then there's some random scene with Christian in his slut bucket. I'm like, we didn't need this scene. Unless she the extortionist down low, I don't really understand why we had to have this scene with Christian and his slut bucket girlfriend, but whatever. Moving right along, we ain't gonna touch on that too long. So Vanessa walks into the office and she asks Dana about Rose and asks if he's seen her lately. And he says, no, I haven't heard or spoken to Rose or whatever. And I ain't tripping off her. I've moved on. Dana, that's your wife. Till death do us part kind of deal. Like, you might want to be finding your wife and figuring out what's going on. Like, you don't this ain't no random girlfriend. Like, what are you talking about? So Vanessa says revenge is not. So then Dana, when she asks about Rose, he says he's over her and he's about to score double points when Bridget is prosecuted. I'm like, you an angry little motherfucker. Oh my God, they done wrote his daggone character. He pisses me off. Like, he says words that just chop you at the core and it make you want to be like, look here, you little bastard, I'm fuck you up. Like, you just want to just slap the shit out of Dana because he is just a little smart ass, okay? So Vanessa says that she thinks he should really talk about this because revenge is not always the best recipe served, okay? And she says he said, well, you want to talk, basically, like, you always trying to get revenge on some damn body. So I know you fucking lying. You always, I know you ain't trying to give me no advice right now. So she urges him to talk to his wife. And, as he's defending himself, he says, you know what? I really don't care to talk about this no more. Some massage therapist is coming out of his office that I guess is going to give him a little happy ending. So in the next scene, August meets Bridget at the jail and tells her the calls, the poison, and all the proof point to her. So she has to believe what's going on. Like, she didn't want to believe that Bridget did it, but it's just too much evidence pointing towards her being the culprit. Then Bridget was like, I didn't do this. And I'm like, well, Bridget, God, you are just basically standing there with the $150,000 in your hand, sis. Like, what do you want August to do? You are caught red-handed at this point. And if you didn't do it, it's going to be hard pressed for you to prove that you didn't do it. Okay. So then August says, how did you know about Dad? Like, how did you know that, he was your father? And instead of Bridget telling her right then and there, she didn't say anything. She was like, I've just known. I've just known. And, it was just, so she didn't really elaborate on it, but she did later on in the episode. So Bridget says, I feel like you're trying to sacrifice me to maintain your image. And she said, you're trying to be the big, strong leader by taking me down. Like, she feels like she's like figuring August out. And I'm like, I don't think August is trying to take you down to prove a point. She's trying to actually be the leader of the company and show that she's there to support them. And that even though it's a hard decision, she has to do what's best for the business and their family. And at this point, all roads are pointing to you being the culprit. So You need to be working on figuring out how to not look like a criminal at this point, because it's just not looking good for Miss Bridget. Okay. So she says, you know what? Be prepared for a fight. I'm like, well, Bridget, bitch, you need to be prepared for a damn fight because you the one in hot water, ma'am. Okay. So the next scene, all the King kids meet for dinner, and they tell so Dana and Christian basically tell August that she needs to pick a side and stick with them. And she says, you know what? I'll stick with you guys. I'll be there to we're what we doing? We taking down Bridget. I guess that's what we doing now. So I don't know. Something tells me Bridget didn't do it, but they all banding together to get her now. So Dana, August, and Christian meet with the media about the heritage wine. So as they're pitching the wine, one of the people that are there was the reporter that was at their house and did the interview, interviewing Dana and the family, and she was the one that recorded them airing out their dirty laundry, and she tried to put it out there, but Vanessa used her connections to kind of get to dead that video. So now all of a sudden she tasting wine and she back in their house. I'm like, well, y'all should have put her on some do not enter list. Like, I don't understand how this woman got back into your daggone house. Like, what is going on? Or back onto at the vineyard. Like, she should not be allowed to come on your property at all. So of course she's the one asking all the questions. She's like, well, yes, while this wine is very good, it's pretty, its price point is really high. Sean and Sean had a private tasting, and their wine is actually pretty good. It's actually, just as good as this one, and the price point is so much lower. Like, why would someone buy this wine over that? And then she just goes into all these statistics. And August, as she's listening to her, she starts to have a slight anxiety attack. And her mom, mothers always know, she started to sense that something was going on. So she kind of broke in and said, okay, everybody enjoy yourselves, keep tasting the wine, whatever the case may be. So everyone's going back and forth. Hold on, y'all. So everyone's going back and forth, all the reporters, and supporting August in her efforts to take. The family starts talking about, supporting August in her efforts to take Sean and Sean down and have Bridget prosecuted. So they're all talking about this at dinner. And this is all after the wine situation happened with all the people that came to taste the wine. So they're all sitting around at dinner, and August is like having this rah-rah session where she's like trying to band together and prove to them that she's on their side. So then Vanessa kind of breaks in and says, I don't support really trying to taking Bridget down, like our main resource. She says, she was like, if she is the extortionist, I wouldn't blame her. She's gone all these years trying to figure out what's going on with her father. She never really had like her biological father from what she thought in her life. She didn't really get to be immersed into this family the way that she should have been. And so I understand what she did. And Vanessa is kind of like being forgiving at this point to Bridget. So she's trying to, really make a good situation out of all of it and try to move forward. And even Aunt Yvette chimes in and she says, I don't think Bridget did it. I'm sorry. Bridget is not that type of person. She's not going to basically try to take our family down. So they're just basically like, I don't want to throw the book at her because she's like, Vanessa's like, Bridget is like a daughter to me too. So in the next scene, Yvette goes to Kelvin to defend Bridget. She says, listen, you going to defend Bridget and you going to get her out the jail and I'm going to give you the money to do it. How you going to act? And you better have an answer by later this afternoon as to what you're going to do. And I want her out of there because she needs to go to the hospital and support her mother. And Kelvin is like, well, that's a conflict of interest at this point. I'm dating August, and that's not going to look good if I'm defending Bridget. And she believes that she's the extortionist and she's like the head of all of this. And the evidence is looking pretty bad that she did it. I don't think she personally did it because I know Bridget, but I don't know. It's just too shady. So Yvette was like, listen, I don't want to hear none of that shit you talking. You going to Yvette Bridget, you're going to represent Bridget, and you're going to get her out of jail. Capiche? And he's like, basically, okay. So in the next scene, Vanessa is hosting another event, and August says chocolates were found at Bridget's house that were left in her room and to poison the vines. The poison to poison the vines. And Yvette comes in and says she doesn't want any secrets and tells Vanessa and August that she commissioned Kelvin to help get Bridget out of jail. So August instantly gets upset and says, "Wow, like why would you get Kelvin to represent her, and you know that we're dating? Like what the hell?" All the evidence is pointing to her doing it. So she brings up all the recent evidence that they found on Bridget and tells Yvette, and Yvette was like, "Well, I didn't know that, but even still, I don't think Bridget did it." So then Yvette's boyfriend comes in and he gets a phone call and he has to walk away. This is the wine distributor guy. He comes back and tells Yvette he has to talk to her, and she's like, "Just say it." And he's like, "I have to drop you guys' wine. I'm officially representing Sean and Sean." So this presents another obstacle for the Kings as far as this new dessert wine that they're trying to get out there. So in the next scene, Kelvin gets Bridget out of jail and takes her to the hospital. And on the way to the hospital, Kelvin says he needs to know everything to be able to help her. So they're talking in the car, and Bridget is trying to prove to him, throughout their conversation, that there's no way that she did this. So in the next scene, Yvette tells her distributor boyfriend, that them dropping the King's wine is BS and racism. And he tells her that it's simply not that. It's just business. Like the profit margin on the Sean and Sean wine is going to be so much greater than what the Kings are providing. And, Yvette brings up a good point. Only 5% of the vineyards are Black owned. So of course their profit margin is going to be driven higher. Well, their budget is not going to be the same as many other distributors because they're not given as many opportunities, which hence drives up their cost ratio versus their competitors, which is what Yvette tried to explain to them. And she was basically saying, and our wine notably is better than theirs. So you guys are just thinking about the dollars and cents at this point and not necessarily how great the wine is. You're just thinking about this is just costs a little bit less and that's it. So he says, "Well, despite all of this, I hope you weren't dating me just for me to get your business or whatever." And she said, "No, I'm dating you because what you do horizontally." And so I guess they still gonna be hunching around, y'all. So in the next scene, August is in Kelvin's office because she's upset that he's representing Bridget. And see, he said she has to understand he has to do what's right. He doesn't believe that Bridget did it. So he's erring on the side of his beliefs. And she says she cannot be with a man that she cannot trust and walks out of his office. So Kelvin meets with the lawyer for Sean and Sean, and she tries to get him to take a plea because they have found a tremendous amount of evidence on Bridget. And Kelvin says he's entitled to discovery evidence and he wants to know everything they know because he is willing to go all the way to trial because there are holes in their previous defense. So in the next scene, Otis is obviously out of the hospital. Christian is meeting with the people that work out in the vineyard, and Otis is there. And Otis is like, they're kind of like riffing back and forth or whatever. But ultimately, Christian is like, I'm happy that you're back at the vineyard working, whatever the case may be. And after they're done talking, Christian sees all these masseuse women coming out of Dana's office, and he's like, "What in the hell is going on? Like, god dang, you getting 50 happy endings in a day, bruh. Like, do you have that much stamina?" So then he calls Rose. And he's like, "Rose, basically, you need to get your ass back here because your husband out here doing a fool. Like, he's really hurt and he's like drowning himself in these daggone massage therapists, but he really loves you and he really wants to be with you. So please come back. He changed your life and all this, that, and the third. Don't do my brother like this. Please, baby, please, for my brother." Okay. So I don't know if his call gonna work because he left that on her voicemail. So we'll see. We do see in the previews that she does come back in some capacity. So Kelvin meets with Bridget. And he says her phone number was found. So the evidence that was uncovered was that her phone number was found as the phone number used to make the extortion phone calls. And so he says, "I suggest that you take a plea bargain. The plea bargain is 6 months in jail, $500,000 in restitution, and 6 months of community service after you get out." And she's like, I didn't do this. Like, I don't want to do any of that. Like, what would you do if I was one of your high paying clients? What would you tell them? He was like, I tell them to take the plea. Like, to be all honest with you, I ain't even gonna bullshit you. This is really you done fucked up. Okay, this is bad. It ain't looking good for you. I don't know what to tell you. You want to go all the way, sis? We can do that, but I don't know if you're gonna win at this point. So I would take the plea if I was you. Take the plea, anime. So then Bridget, after this scene, goes to August's house and tries to get her to understand that it was not her. She's like, it's not me. Why would I do this to my own family or whatever? And she says she's like, listen, think about it. Why would I put chocolate in Aunt Vanessa's room? I'm allergic to chocolate. Remember that time when we were kids and I had an allergic reaction to the chocolate? And I think August kind of perked up like, oh, yeah, you're right. And then she says, well, what about the poison? What about your phone number and all this stuff? She's like, I don't know how the phone number situation is happening, but I'm not making those calls. That's not me. Somebody must be cloning my phone number or something. She said, what about you poisoning the vines? She was like, that's not uncommon practice. You have to do that to balance the something. She said, balance something with the vines or whatever. You have to, that's a known ingredient or method of doing that. And here's my thing. If that's a known process and Christian was learning from Bridget about the vines, why didn't he know that? Like, why didn't he know that that is a common practice if you're out there treating the vines? And why didn't Otis teach him that? Like, I didn't understand that. But anyway, then August was like, well, how did you know that my dad was your dad? And she said, well, one time I heard my mother and him arguing on the phone, and she said it just didn't seem natural, like an uncle and an aunt kind of a uncle conversation. So she was like, it was a little fishy, and I started to really figure out like something that isn't right. They were arguing over her tuition being paid. So she said, you know what, I really want to know who. I haven't met my dad. I don't know what's going on. Let me figure this out. So they went to Starbucks one day and she kept his cup and she tested his DNA. And lo and behold, 99.9%, Maury said, you are the father. Okay. So that was how she figured out that was her dad. And she figured that out just a couple of months ago. So August tells Bridget, listen, you did. If they say you did that shit, you did that shit. Can you just take the plea and stop the bleeding? Like, we need you. This whole case and whole situation surrounding you is embarrassing out of our family. So can you just take the plea deal and just so we can all just move on from this? And so August walks away from her and Bridget looks at her like the scum of the earth. I just don't understand how Bridget can't understand the position that August is in. You look guilty. Like, really? It's really starting to look like you did this, sis. Like, I don't know what to tell you. So then Bridget, there's a scene where August is now with Kelvin and she's like, I understand, why you decided that you wanted to help Bridget or whatever. So they kind of talk about it. And then Kelvin is like, I want you to meet my son if we're really going to be like moving forward with this thing. Like, I'm really trying to like make this a done deal between you and I, but you need to meet my child. Would you be willing to do that? She's like, yeah. So in the midst of them having their reconnection session and their sex moment, child, Bridget calls. So Bridget's like, you're back on my team, because she fired him and now she wants to have him back again. So she rehires him and she has this realization after she paints and does all this stuff. Mind you, we didn't talk about when she first got out of jail. She comes home and there's some painting that she has that has tons of money in it. Fishy as okay. Where you get all this money from? I know they gave her a lump sum of money when Reginald died. I don't know if that's the money, but I don't know where she got all these coins from. So she's doing another painting, and now she has a realization that she wants him to be her lawyer again, because she fired him because she was pissed that she felt like he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do for her. And now she wants him to come back because she's like, I'm not taking no plea deal. I want to go all the way. And I'm just like my dad. She listening to Yvette, child. I'm just like my dad. I'm a fighter. And I'm not going to let anybody make me look like a criminal. And I'm not. So he tells August, he gathers his things and he's like, well, I'm back on the case. I got to go work on Bridget's case or whatever. So August is like, what did we just talk about? like, we reconciled because you're not representing her. Now you telling me you gonna represent her, and she's like, okay, whatever. I listen, just give me the D. So as he's leaving out, his wife Sonia was at the door, and she's like, so are you two, are y'all okay? Because that explains it. I seen y'all running together the other day. Oh yes, I seen you. Okay, and if y'all, that changes everything. Okay. So basically, she's trying to say, oh, okay, now I can get you for some more coins because now it's like you're cheating on me because we're not divorced yet. Okay. So, and he's like, August, it's not what you think. Tanya, it's not what you think. It actually is what she thinks. You definitely just screwed August. She has on a negligee. So, anyway, he's like, August is not what you think. Just trust me. Believe in me. You know, she's the mother of my child. So I got to handle this. I got to deal with this. And August is like, what in the fuck is going on here? So I don't know what's about to happen with Lil Kelvin and Sonya, child. So anyway, in the next scene, Bridget meets with this sketchy WP. And I'm like, who is this man? Who is that, Harpo? Who is this man? So she meets Colonel Sanders out somewhere, and she pulls up. Obviously, he was there waiting on Bridget. So he's like, she's like, I want to move forward with business as we've been going. And he said, oh, no. We're done because you, my good sis, are too much in the public light. So you're done. We're done. I'm up out of this camp. I'm done. So Colonel Sanders got in his truck and he took his 10-piece and got on. Okay. He was like, I'm not dealing with you, Bridget, no more. You and I don't want no parts of you because you about to get caught. And I can't be a part of this. I'm starting to think, Bridget, are you the extortionist? Because as you're using this man's voice to be calling people and you making people think it's him, but it's really you and y'all working together. Y'all working together, not together apart. I don't know. I need to know who the extortionist is. I don't know what's going on here. We need to move along with this, okay? And that's that on that. I don't want to see Bridget in jail, and I don't want to see Aunt Melanie in a coma. Let's finalize these things. Next week is the season finale. I'm really enjoying The Kings of Napa. I think it's very well put together. Some scenes they can leave out, like the one with Christian. I didn't think that was necessary. But anyway, moving right along. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this review with anybody else that you know that watches this show too. And I will see you in the next video. Peace